That's packed already.
Yeah, he was good.
He's good. 17.1 kg. Oh, quite light. That's good, right? Okay. Well, not so much.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Rich. Michael here.
Hey, Michael.
I don't know if Martin's here. His icon is on. Hello, Martin.
Hi, sorry, it's Khadija from Strigan Partners.
Oh, good evening.
Martin's coming in shortly. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, Martin's here.
Hello, Martin.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit late. I was struggling with the Malaysian internet again.
Oh, you're on time. It's 9 o'clock in Chicago, right on the dot.
Yeah, how's the weather in Chicago? Must be nice.
It's beautiful, but next week it's going to be 90, 95, and I understand all over Europe it's sweltering. But what's it like in Singapore? Are you in Germany or Singapore today? Where are you?
In Singapore, in Malaysia, Singapore.
Is it
Is
nice? Is the
yeah, yeah,
weather
yeah.
nice?
I'm yeah, about my own innovation. I'm in near. Hello, Christoph. Nice to have you here. I have a few interesting news. But let me just share. Um, Johor, Malaysia is opening towards Singapore and vice versa currently. That's very innovative. Singapore is currently struggling with three challenges, and they all have to do with the changing times. The first challenge is that there is a massive how to say increase in unemployment because of AI, among others, and because things are no more done in the old way. Number two, the Singapore has opened up to Malaysia, and there would very soon be a train that would connect the south of Malaysia with Singapore, and then it would be similar to Manhattan and New Jersey, the Secaucus area along the Hudson River on the other side. So you can then travel more easily from Singapore to Malaysia and the other way around. And this is important because the price level in Malaysia is only 1/3 of the price level in Singapore. And also the wages are 1/3 and 1/3 less. So the whole of Singapore is now outsourcing to Malaysia because everything is so much cheaper here. And my firm is among those who do that. And what was the third one? I forgot, but these two are already massive. And so I'm here and I'm trying everything out and getting things going. And we have the projects that are, I mean, my own firm's innovation, which is the Credentilix. I can also tell you some progress there, and the sprint patent drafting and all the sprint patent services and the AI training and AI. I'm fully into AI from head to toes, and is quite exciting for a law firm to be innovative in that sense. And what I've done over the years is just applying my 4x4. So what you see is I'm incrementally going forward, not getting all in, but trying out what works and what does not. So I'm in Malaysia, but only 1 hour away from Singapore downtown, if you want to say so. And I'm near a regional airport, and the airport's name is Senai. And there are direct flights. It's an international airport. They have only 20 flights a day, maybe, or 15 or so. I know that because our office is just under the incoming lane for the outgoing lane for the aircrafts to the airport. We are in direct extension of the landing strip. And I don't hear aircrafts often, sometimes only 3 times a day, sometimes 5 times. But they have a night flight to Guangzhou. And that night flight to Guangzhou costs only $60. And Guangzhou is 4 hours away. And my plan is we have this Ride the Wave event or program that brings German small and medium-sized enterprises, Mittelstand, to Asia. And I would recommend to them that they select the Senai, or where we are now, as their global hub, because from here they can reach all the major cities in Southeast Asia, plus a few South Chinese cities, among others, Guangzhou. Christoph, does that sound interesting?
Really interesting, because it's very close, and as you mentioned, if they have very affordable flights, it makes it a lot easier to go back and forward.
Yes. And wait, as I'm speaking now, I forward to you the program for the Ride the Wave. The key event would be on 13th of October, and there would be another key event on 15th of October in Malaysia. So the 13th October event is in Singapore. It's the entire day, and is all about doing entrepreneurship, German entrepreneurship in Singapore. It's one full day from morning 10 until evening midnight also. And on the 15th, we do the same thing in Malaysia, in Johor Bahru, over the river, over the Hudson, if you want to say so. Yes, I rename now this little straits as the Hudson River between Singapore and Malaysia. And so the Thursday would also be full. And there would be many entrepreneurs in Singapore from Germany. I have even one gentleman who comes from Atlanta with the whole German Chamber of Commerce of Atlanta. And it's quite an event. And so we have 3 months left, or 3.5 months left. And yeah, I'm rattling the cage and ringing the bell. And I can tell you all, the situation in Germany is now really dire. The entire industrial sector, if you take all industry companies in Germany across, they have a 20% less revenue as compared with November. And that for the past 6 months. So the whole industrial sector in Germany is 20% down. And if you know that the margin in that sector is only 5%, then that means that 1 year would eat up the profits of 4 years. And that's not sustainable at all. And there is no hope in sight, because everything is so bad. I'm speaking because of that program with entrepreneurs from Germany a lot, and not only with those who run the companies, but also with service providers like lawyers or like consultants or so. And what they say is, this is incredible. They have never seen anything similar before. Maybe during the Lehman crisis or during the lockdowns in COVID-19. Okay, it doesn't impress you much, but what I can tell you, yesterday I talked with a lawyer who lost a single lawyer who lost 3 clients, factories, I mean small and medium-sized factories with something like 120, 200 people. And they sent him all the lawyer's work for the past 23 years. And he lost all 3 of them because of bankruptcy in 2 cases, and 1 is closing down. I put the LinkedIn post about that, and he says that he's in my age, so in his early 60s, and he says that he just stays put where he is, but he thinks that this will never recover again. Never meaning not during his lifetime. And yeah, the question is really, would these companies survive by starting to innovate? And it may work, but the problem is that when the overall economic situation in Germany changes so much, then there's also not much purchasing power in the market. And most of those that I'm talking about, they are all B2B. They don't produce consumer products. It's all about investment products that they have. The car industry in Germany, very desperate. The I don't know whether you are aware of that, but I posted that also on LinkedIn. The Volkswagen company, the board, the executive board of Volkswagen. 2 years ago they built 20 million cars per year, which is quite a number. Is a lot, right? Germany alone, 3 years ago, made 4 million, but Volkswagen has factories in other countries. But their business concept does not seem to work, because the board of the executive board of Volkswagen hired a consultant to do an anonymous survey among the 9 members of the board. The 9 bosses of Volkswagen. And they all said anonymously that the Volkswagen business model doesn't work anymore. And they think that that there's no hope. 7 of 9 say no hope, and 2 say, oh, there may be a silver lining at the horizon, but they're also not so sure. And if a company like Volkswagen says that, I would say then this is more than just the canary in the coal mine. It's really not good.
Say, Martin, Michael here. So you've said a lot, okay? And for this innovation group, some of it's innovation and some of it is your observation about geopolitics. I want to come back to your comment about the German car companies, not only Volkswagen, but all 5 of them, okay? And we talked about their suppliers also going down the toilet. And I mentioned months ago, there's 3 very strong tier 1 suppliers that got into other things. And again, those are Bosch, Continental, and ZF. Now, ZF is mostly still powertrain and transmissions, but they at least got into trucks and rail and ground carts for aircraft and ag construction equipment. So ZF is a company that's been a client of mine for years, and they're very smart. They still dominant business for them is automotive. But then Bosch got into appliances and power tools. They were very smart. Continental, of course, not only tires and belts for your car, but they got into everything polymer, not only natural rubber, but synthetics. And they're very, very smart. So, and it's easy to say it's the fault of the global economy or the Chinese, but I think Volkswagen and all 5 German car companies basically lost track of fundamentals. Build a car that people want to buy, do it better and cheaper than competitors, and you'll keep your share of the world market. And the competition has changed. My first German car was a 61 Mercedes 40 years ago. I've had 6 of those and 1 Audi, and friends have had Volkswagens. And I think for the audience, anyone who's had a Volkswagen knows that the dealers are difficult to deal with, and so are the other German companies, especially Audi. And their quality, the engineering follow-ups are despicable, absolutely despicable. So, blame it on Volkswagen. Don't just blame it on the Chinese competitors or competitors making cars in Hungary or Atlanta, or all that's happened that's killing German jobs. But I think the German car companies need to think back of fundamentals. And yes, they make cars all over the world, but again, they're very honorary. The quality has gone downhill, and I think the global market share of German companies has dropped maybe 20% from maybe years ago it was 6%, now it's 4%. Well, shame on them. And their suppliers, again, Bosch and ZF and Continental must be very frustrated with the big 5 German car companies for letting it happen, but they were smart. They got into other businesses. So I think a lot of it's fundamentals, Martin. And you can blame the economy, blame the Chinese, blame Mittelstadt, government regulations, all the excuses, but I think there's no excuse. Make a product people want to buy, take strategy and tactics to win and hold customers and beat neutralized competitors, and you'll keep your market share and your profitability. It's basic stuff.
Yeah, sure. But
hey, Martin.
Yes, go ahead, Rich.
I want to come back to something that you said at the very beginning and understand in more detail. You said that Singapore is having a high unemployment right now because of AI.
Yes.
And the impact of AI. So I'm really interested to know about that because, you know, in the mainstream media, well, I should say the financial media here in the U.S., you know, they're reporting that, you know, there's some layoffs occurring, but it's not due to AI directly, right? I mean, there's some banks that had laid off, and there's some other institutions that have, but they're saying that, you know, we haven't seen the transition yet here in the U.S. occur, you know, from AI, the impact of AI from a layoff standpoint. And
I kind of call BS on that. I've heard plenty of layoffs from AI specifically.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm trying to, you know, Martin, Joe, I welcome both your comments on that to understand it more, because, you know, that's of interest to me. So
a year ago, Siemens laid off 1,500 engineers because of, and I quote, AI.
What kind of engineers?
Anything from engineers designing equipment to go to war to people programming things.
I can give you an example. My own son, he's now 25 years old, and he was a computer science student, and he signed up with a startup in the Bay Area, but they also have a headquarter in New York, and he just dropped out from university, and he's now an after-sales engineer. And he says that he does the job of 5 after-sales engineers before AI. And
wow.
And of course, he doesn't earn 5 times as much, but twice as much as an after-sales engineer before. And that is, by the way, it took me. He's now earning as much as what I earned as a patent attorney, age 35, at 25 with no degree, 0 degree. So and all that of AI, and he's quite a smart guy, actually a very smart guy. He went through the Singapore educational system as a breeze, and he ended up in the class with the 50 smartest of his peers in the same age bracket in Singapore. And because they every 2 years they sort out the smartest ones and the dumbest ones and put them in other classes. And he was 6 times promoted up to the smartest guys. And so he ended up in a class with very smart people. And yeah, so I believe the best example why AI is so powerful is my own son with this example. Yeah. And this is a startup.
But what about the other population within Singapore that you're referencing, and the amount of layoffs? What sector are they in? And what types of jobs were they performing?
That has changed over the past 20 years. Singapore groomed the industry. I mean, like a big we are like a big company with 5 million employees, and yeah, 5 million employees is right. Yeah, and there are 2 classes of employees: those who are residents, nationals, and permanent residents, and then those that are on any sort of employment work or whatever path that is there. And the relationship is about 2 to 1. For 2 residents, there is 1 non-resident, and all that together is 5.5 million or so. And for the residents, life is already a bit easier because there are subsidies and the government takes over a lot of services that are there. And also they have a mindset to not let the public sector grow, but they groom it. And in a course of doing so, from my little perspective of what I see, is that production has left Singapore probably forever. And what is now here is the service industry, and because there's a service for everything, and also the banking. So banking and the banking industry, and then you have 5,000 lawyers, which I think is not so much for 5 million people. In Germany, we have 150,000 lawyers for 80 million. So I would say it's about 3 times more as in Singapore, lawyers. So law is not really a thriving industry in Singapore. And what I can tell you is because I'm in law, that I would say 95% of all lawyers are using AI. And they become there's a Pareto distribution or a Gauss distribution. 20% become 4 times as fast as before. 20% become slower as before, and the big 60% in the middle, they double the work speed in average. And actually, that's also my own experience, because I've trained about 300 patent attorneys to use AI. I have a course for training them to do AI. And the government has now identified 2 areas in the society where they really push through the AI. And one area is legal, and the other one is taxes. Tax accountants and accountancy and so on and so on. And of course, autonomous driving. There are the first bus lines that have no more driver. Then I would say that half of the MRTs, the local urban trains, the subways you may call them, but they're not all under the earth, so it's not a full subway. I would say that at least half of the trains are autonomous, no more driver. And and that also interesting. In Singapore, there is practically no parking space on the road. So if you have a car and you want to park your car, it must be done in a car park. And there's no more, all those car parks are autonomous, and you don't even need a card or so, because those systems, they use AI for the number plate, the registration plate detection. And it's all linked to a bank account where everything is deducted automatically. So, and if you remember 50 years ago, if the alcoholics were manning the gates in the public car parks, at least in Germany, this was the case. And I don't think that in the US it was so different. In Canada, I have seen the same thing. And there's no more job for those people at those. So what I can say for Singapore, the government is pushing for that, and the sector that does it already are the banks as well by themselves, because it's so easy to save, and not only the banks but also those in those companies that work for banks or are in the financial system somehow. And for example, they would monitor the payments that you make, and then run compliance checks based on the payment patterns that you have on your bank account. And I know that for sure. And now, as I'm in Malaysia, I can tell you that Malaysia is not far behind Singapore, and Malaysia is really, as compared with Singapore, is not the same standard. There's a difference of a factor 3. Did I touch all aspects that you find interesting, or any further questions?
No, that sort of gives me some thoughts. It's just interesting, how there's all sorts of experts that are on CNBC as an example, and they're trying to understand the future impact of AI and the displacement of jobs and how we should be reacting, not only at the federal level but also the state and local level, and preparing for that. And are we going to tax the data centers, or are we going to tax tokens, or are we going to tax something within the AI system to generate revenue that can be, support the displaced workers in the future.
Ah,
You
And
just need to tax energy because energy is the main input to it. And so they just need to stop getting the discount at which the rate, and I'm going to claim this, the rate that homes are going to go without electricity, that homes are more likely to have a rolling blackout because they're buying it at 1/3 the price of a house. They're paying 1/3 the price a residential home is paying for electricity. This is problematic.
why is it
yeah,
problematic?
but what's happening, Joe, is that, and I understand your point of view completely because I had that same opinion, but my opinion on that has shifted in the recent months because what's happening is that the data centers are now switching to be self powered, meaning that they're bringing in gas turbines, they're bringing in, other types of, potential energy sources. And, as an example, GE Vernova, which is the old General Electric, power division, or group or subsidiary, if you would, now it's a standalone company. Basically they just sold 7 turbines of their largest size gas turbine to a Microsoft facility in Texas that's being built. Their backlog for those gas turbines is all the way to 2030. And they were even picking up advanced orders into 2031 and beyond. And they're booked. They're the only other alternative now is basically looking at small nuclear reactors that are going to power the data centers. But I think we could debate all day about the rolling blackouts, and I expect some of that to happen actually, but I think it's going to be mitigated with the sharing of power and the offloading of power, etc. I think that there's they're trying to mitigate that, and Michael has talked about that at length a number of times here, about the energy infrastructure that he's had experience in. But I think going forward, I think the data center power with between either gas turbine and or diesel, to some extent, some solar, some hydroelectric, if you would, depending on where they're located, they're going to be able to offset that hopefully, and the U.S. will be insulated from those rolling blackouts. But there could be a gap in here that provides some
If it's not a rolling blackout, I'm going to interject that the pricing of electricity at your home will double.
Say, Joe, just a quick comment on that, okay? Large customers do what's called bulk power contracts. So the fact that they only pay a third.
I know I managed a $6 million bill a month at one of those facilities.
Joe, and Rich, per your comment, Saline, Michigan, that we talked about, Rich, there's a 345 kV transmission line with excess capacity. Detroit Edison is going to be making a lot of money on that. And the entire U.S. is interconnected, including Ontario Hydro, Niagara Falls, and Canada. So, there are macro forecasts for the impact of data centers on the U.S. grid. And any data center can self-generate, Rich, per your comment. But they're basically sitting there and they're planning for whether or not they're going to self-generate or basically buy it in bulk from the grid. And Joe, I'm glad you're familiar with it, because if a utility has excess spinning reserve, whether it be time of day or seasonal, or buying and selling power from their neighboring electric utilities, the decision at each data center is basically one that comes down to economics. And Rich, you're exactly right. GE has been backlogged for gas turbines, and there are other reasons for that. It's the shift away from coal and all kinds of large industrials, including pulp and paper and chemical and refinery, who are making their own power. But each of those customers compete with data centers for the available grid capacity. And the
You're
US
right.
entirely
I
has,
should correct. We won't have rolling blackouts. Instead, what you'll have is every single manufacturer at that level scale will be hit with more days of curtailment. And this typically happens on the highest heat day of the year, where all the homes are pulling for their HVAC systems. And so then all the manufacturers are told to curtail, where they must drop, say, a third of their load.
They're paid to do that, Joe. If they can shift production from day shift to night shift, they're gonna be incentivized to doing what's common sense to save money on their power.
They produce less. It's
Well-
not that they shift from day to night, they just produce less product. And in that case, yes, they aren't paid to do that. They're essentially, they stay on a cheaper billing schedule. And if they fail to do that, they go to a higher billing schedule.
They can go to people who bring in a temporary flatbed with a gas turbine, and they can self-generate to keep their factory running 24/7, Joe. There's ways around it. They don't have to
Yes, we
curtail.
generated up to 30% electricity on the day of curtailment, but we also still had to drop 20 megawatts that day. But 20 megawatts on a 100 megawatt facility is, I mean, it's a fly in a pond in comparison to the amount of power that we're talking about data centers of terawatts. The terawatt data center is 10 times this type of facility.
It's not mandatory, Joe. They can buy from a neighboring state that has excess spinning reserve and transmission line voltages. It's not mandatory that they curtail their production. It's just that it's a matter of economics. If the neighboring utility in Ohio can sell it to a manufacturer outside of Detroit, they can send power 1,000 miles according to deregulation. So the electrons may not even come from a neighboring state. It could be excess reserve in the state of Washington, 2,000 miles away. The whole country is connected, and all the large industrials buy power. If they're self-generating, they may even export power to their neighboring manufacturing site because they're sitting there.
Most states won't allow that. They're not allowed to export or sell power back to the grid. A lot of these facilities are not permitted to. No. I think you misunderstand that state by state, they're not allowed to on their schedule because otherwise it changes them to a different billing schedule again and it would break their contract. And it is a local politics
It's
vote
not
that
selling it
causes
back
this.
to the grid, Joe. It's not selling it back to the grid. It's mandated by FERC that a customer can go on and they can buy it. It's not going back to the grid. They designate a customer. Same thing with natural gas deregulation.
They can't backfeed.
No,
they're not allowed to backfeed. If they ever have a moment of backfeeding, it would give them, let's say at these type of facilities, tens of millions of dollars in fines if they backfeed.
It's not backfeeding. It's by agreement, and it's usually at transmission level voltages. It's not selling it back to the utility. It's enacting FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and allowing them to sell and buy power as far away as they wish, including 2,000 miles away, Joe. Same thing happened with deregulation of natural gas. That's just the way it is. They're not backfeeding. They have to have the correct transfer switch to enable that. So if there's an outage in Detroit, they're not going to electrocute some guy on the pole trying to bring back power. So you're right.
All of Iowa will not permit it. It's a local municipality and it's a vote by politicians that decide these schedules. And so it's not permitted within Iowa as an example. The entire state, you cannot sell back. You cannot put energy into the grid in order to sell to another party.
They're not selling
It'd be illegal.
To the utility. They're selling it to each other.
They don't need to sell it back to the grid, but if they put it into the system, the line, not permitted.
Take a look at the Iowa tariff. They have to do it. It's federal law, Joe. They have to do it.
I've also given Martin the best resource that I know in all of the country for this. I think I connected you with Rachel. She is the best resource for this type of conversation.
Yeah, sure. And it will come up once we get the Credentialix up and then can finance this green power facility, because now we are closer. The problem is only that for the Credentialix, a project in that size, also a data center, is so much too big that you cannot possibly handle it, even with not yet. Even if you run it fully automated. I give you an example. I have here a current request, and he wanted to explore whether to go on Credentialix or not. This guy wants to finance a semiconductor industry in Indonesia. And what they need is something like a 3-digit million to $1 billion US. And the main problem that he has is to attract the people who stand for that project. Because it would be perfect for venture capital, but the venture capitalists, as they do not understand the technology, and building up a semiconductor industry is not something that is trivial. I know that because I was part of building up the German semiconductor industry in the 90s of the last century. And those people who are still working, they are maybe 5 to 10 years my seniors, and they're now working as consultants, and they were the juniors when the semiconductor industry in Germany was built up. And they are now planning to do a similar thing in Indonesia because the Indonesian government has asked for it. And so he approached me whether I could help. And I said, hey, why don't we apply 4x4 on what you do? And in order to get those famous people underwriting what you do so that the venture capitalists dare to come in, why don't we set up a small project funded by small investors, in that case a few $1 million, and then try to interest those people to come in and be part of that success story, and then use that as a pony engine. Now you don't know what a pony engine is, I will explain to you, but as a pony engine to start the big diesel, the big 25-liter diesel. The idea with a pony engine comes from Caterpillar. They installed a small 3 or 4 cylinder car engine that you have to start before you start the 25-liter diesel engine. And then, so you have a starter engine with 50 horsepower or 100 horsepower to start the big monster with 2000 horsepower. And so Credentialix would then be used as a 50 horsepower motor to start the big 2000 horsepower engine. And yeah, that's what I can contribute so far. So for the big projects, the Credentialix is not really the best. You need to think around the corner when you want to apply it.
I've also been hearing a ton about hydrogen generation coming into the market as an additional like storage capacity. So on the days where it gets heavy use, that they're starting to use hydrogen for, for an innovation. Sounds like hydrogen cars might be coming back around as a possibility with a distance of 700 miles.
No, I don't believe in that, but it's okay. It's more a religious question. For some special applications, these hydrogen engines are good, but for most they are not, because there are a lot of problems with that. And it's also dangerous. I don't know whether you remember, but maybe you have heard there was a German Luftschiff. It was an airship, Hindenburg, that went down because it was using hydrogen as a floating gas instead of helium. And
yes, because hydrogen likes to make all metal that contains it embrittled and break the barrier.
And I have a few.
Joe, there's more to it. Richard Nixon back in 1970 said to Boeing, let's put hydrogen on 727s. So it wasn't so much that it corroded the metal tanks, Joe. It was basically infrastructure. And Martin, your Hindenburg story is well known, but the engines might have just been diesels with the propellers. But you're right. The hydrogen in the blimp is what the problem was.
Yes.
But hydrogen economy for cars and airplanes has been talked about for 50 years, Joe. And so I'm like you, Martin. I don't think it's going to happen. The key is the infrastructure. You need to put it into service stations, and natural gas vehicles have taken off in Canada for municipal trucks and so forth. But even there, natural gas is a lot safer than hydrogen in the tank in the
Yes.
trunk of your car. But nonetheless, the infrastructure, it's not like diesel fuel and gasoline where you don't have to go any more than 50 miles to fill your tank. That's the same problem with EVs, by the way. I'm a pessimist. I don't think EVs are going to take off because of range
Okay.
anxiety.
I can chip in a few experiences. I have companies who did innovation in hydrogen, and not even one of them did not have an accident, a laboratory accident with an explosion. And that says something. So I do this for a very long time. I've seen many people saying, "Oh, hydrogen is so good," and then after 2, 3, 5 years, you hear, "Oh, they're closing the lab because they had an explosion." And I say, "Yeah, sure." Hydrogen has a very, 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 very little head. It goes through everything, anything, and even into the metals. Although when I studied engineering 40 years ago, almost 40 years, that was meant as a joke that there were professors who wanted to demonstrate that hydrogen would make metal brittle, and all the other professors thought that this was a laughing stock. And okay, now they found out, yes, it has some contribution, but that's not the main problem. The brittleness of the metal is not the issue. The problem is the explosion. And I really speak from firsthand knowledge.
Well, the other thing, Martin, the other thing is people use it for CVD diamond manufacturing. And if it leaks, you can't see it. At night, it might be a very low blue flame that hovers the ground. So if it leaks and catches fire, it may not be the tank that explodes, but if you've got a fitting problem and it's leaking, you really don't know it until someone strikes a spark and then the whole facility blows up.
Yes. Is more. I see it as a security problem, and I don't think that this will be solved easily. In very sure, but yeah. So back to the Credentilix. I wanted to tell you about that. You all know the Credentilix, right? Credentilix.com is a crowdfunding method where you can put money to support innovation or to buy a product that you want to have if it's only on the market. And there would be a feedback loop. That is the price mechanism about that. So our flagship project has now all the tokens. The tokens can be purchased, but only with a bank transaction or with cryptocurrency. And we wanted to install a credit card payment facility, and the payment provider refused to give his credit card there for that. And we are now trying to solve that problem.
I heavily suggest then the solution that we do for our business is we don't take credit card ever. What we do is we have the bank provide a credit card number. So we'll give someone an invoice and then we provide them the bank link. The bank that we work with has their own site where someone can use a credit card to pay against an invoice. Now we have had someone type in the wrong decimal place and they sent an extra $10,000 when they were only supposed to send $1,000 kind of thing. And so we went and canceled that payment. So you do have to monitor for something like that, but then we never hold the credit card information. So we can't be liable if someone, here's the reason why our phone lines were recorded at some point, like they're on a voice over internet. So you assume the phone line's recorded. And because of that, we can't take credit card information over the phone now. Because if anyone ever got access to the records of the phone recordings, technically we would be giving up credit card information. Yes. And so now we don't even take the credit card over the phone.
Okay, another reason why you shouldn't do credit cards. Actually, I never thought. I'm really grateful, Joe. Thank you for sharing the experience. Another reason is that people who pay with a credit card, they can call the payment back. And this is the reason why the credit card companies would keep the money for 6 months before they release it to you as a seller. And that can bankrupt you.
Well, Martin, what about debit cards? That was a great invention 30 years ago because it's much more difficult to launch a complaint and return an item with a debit card than it is a credit card. So
yeah, that's why I love debit cards. You wouldn't believe it. I have only one single credit card.
Oh, well, I treat debit cards like the plague. I've only got credit cards for that reason. And I've used it to send back a laptop that was a fraud from China. Yeah. So even if you ask your bank, Martin, if you ask your bank about debit cards, they're not going to like it. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But what I see is now that not being able to pay with a credit card is not a disadvantage. And actually, I like that idea. And also,
well, if you're Amazon, Martin, it is a disadvantage. But you know, business to business, electronic funds transfers has been around for a long time. When my consulting firm collects from a client, it's usually bank to bank with a routing number. They send a paper check. But yeah, we don't take credit cards or debit cards either.
Okay.
You're on a different price if you're paying with a credit card with us versus if you're paying with ACH.
No, but
I forget what ACH is. I know we hate like 3-letter acronyms.
No, I'm a little bit into Bitcoin. I have something like a bit less than 1 Bitcoin left from the Bitcoins that I bought once, long time ago, and all the Bitcoin sales that I did, and I had only 1 Bitcoin purchase in my life, and a number of sales. Whenever this thing doubled, then I sold a part of it. And what I saw is that the marketplace for those Bitcoins where I'm is in Germany, and you cannot buy Bitcoin with a credit card. You can only buy Bitcoin with real cash from a real bank account. And everybody seems to accept that. And if that applies to Bitcoin, so why not to crowdfunding for innovation?
Martin, there's another reason. If you pay with a credit card, the governments around the world can trace that 30 years later. And if they think you're doing something to avoid taxes, they can send you to jail. And the credit card, the bank has to give that transaction. So if you pay with cash or however else, it's not traceable. If you pay with Bitcoin and the blockchain, it's not traceable. Right?
Okay. So what I hear from you is, if you could invest into a certain innovation by a simple money transfer by a bank, then that would be acceptable, right?
I would rather do a bank transfer than a Bitcoin transfer, because otherwise I'm giving someone else a percentage of the fees before I even transfer to you. So I do not want to put it into Bitcoin before I pay you. Yeah, that's extra steps cost me too much.
Yes.
Yeah, but Martin, if it gets really ugly, if you become a 6 or 7 figure transactor through banks, I think the governments around the world can also subpoena your bank records. So you're not insulated from the black hats, even though you're no longer with credit cards.
As a lawyer, I'm doing this for a very long time, and I always stayed away from the money, number one, which means I never do any bank transfer myself. It will all be done through my employees. The only bank transfer that I do is for some personal stuff and with using my debit card and not a credit card when I pay at a mall or somewhere in a shop. So I personally, I'm a lawyer 100%, and I would always stay away from money transactions. I would always pay somebody to do that for me and do a 4 eyes check. And I would
But Martin, if they're your employee, you're the officer and they're just a bilge coolie. So if they get caught doing something nefarious, you're going to go to jail, not them.
In principle, yes, but
in practice,
in No, in practice, all the lawyers that I know who obeyed to those principles, and I have learned it from older lawyers, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. I can tell you from experience.
Well, when
So-
John Gotti went to jail as a mafia kingpin, it wasn't his bilge coolie assassins
No,
that
no,
went
no.
to jail. They prosecuted him.
You say that because you don't know how a law firm runs. It's very simple, Michael. And
Well, I'll tell you how the Chicago Mafia ran. When the FBI went after Al Capone or Derringer, they didn't go after the bilge coolie. They went after the kingpin. So there you go.
I have no
I don't have to be a
experience with-
lawyer. I don't have to be a lawyer. I know
I
enough
have-
of how
I have
government.
no
and-
experience with mafia, Michael, whatsoever. Sorry.
Okay, well, I've got experience with the IRS, all right? So
Mm.
you don't hide from the IRS if you're doing
Mhm.
something nefarious with Bitcoin and blockchain.
In
So
very
a bank
simple,
transfer.
in very simple words, as long as you have a process, and you as the owner of the thing do not interfere with the process, and the process follows the rules, and the rules are compliant according to the law, then mistakes can happen, and those mistakes are identified as mistakes and not as fraud. And if you have a protocol of what is going on, and you're not destroying evidence, then you would survive all the audits that are there. They're out there.
But Martin, if your employees are compliant, why can't you also be compliant? Why are you delegating it to some poor guy who only makes 20 grand a year and you're gonna send him to jail while you're living the life of
Michael,
Riley? Come
if a
on.
mistake happens, nobody goes to jail. A mistake is a mistake that can happen. Very simple. And what the compliance is all about, creating a set of rules to whom everybody in the company obeys. And as everybody follows, mistakes or criminal actions, I wouldn't even say mistakes, because mistakes still happen, but criminal activities cannot happen.
As
And-
long as they're sins of omission, not sins of commission, Martin. So yeah, mistakes can be tolerated by the IRS or someone similar, but be careful. You know, you can't get too many mistakes through the IRS before you go to jail.
Nobody goes to jail for a mistake.
They do if it's more than a few percent per year of accounting errors and avoiding taxes.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
avoiding taxes and there's evading taxes. So be careful.
We don't even talk about avoiding or evading taxes. I'm talking about mistakes that happen when you fail the compliance measures, and that's the important thing.
Can we talk about some innovation stuff?
Yeah, of course. I thought we are now in the midst of FTO, right? And black hats. And I believe that's an important stuff. So what I can take away from that, we give up the credit card idea and we go only for bank transfer, and we may even leave away the crypto, because crypto, there's this anonymous stuff that you don't want. Then people use this thing for their activities outside the law, I believe. So, and it should only be with a bank account transfer. And I'm really grateful. What do you think, Rich? If you cannot do a Credentilix purchase with your credit card, would it still be interesting for you?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to use a credit card to make an investment anyway. So,
Okay.
I'm going to use my account. I would think that the more important aspect would not only be, what we call an ACH, right, transfer, but also to be able to use your investment brokerage account, as an example, Merrill Lynch or Edward Jones or, something of that nature, right? Or, JP Morgan or something. I think that, having the ability to use that is as important as an ACH.
But the question is, because we cannot call it an investment, because if you call it an investment, then it's no longer a utility token or a service token, then it would be an equity token. And the Credentilix comes without equity. So doubt that Merrill Lynch or Schwab or whatever would take that up into their portfolio. They would.
Well, I don't know about that. Because I can buy art via that. So why would it be any different than art?
Because art would give you equity, right? You get a piece of an artwork.
Yeah,
Rich,
theoretically, yeah.
Hey, Rich, ACH is Automated Clearinghouse. So I look at it as very similar to Zelle or PayPal, but it has more credibility.
Yeah, exactly.
It's ACH is Automated Clearinghouse. So
Yeah,
it's no
yeah.
different. Yeah, it's like giving someone a lockbox to receive your checks through U.S. mail. And so there are third parties and transactions all the time. And Zelle and PayPal, the founder of PayPal was who? Bezos or somebody? So it might have been Elon Musk. One of his first deals was inventing PayPal, but then the government got involved in all the black hats, Martin. So, I think EFT is the more rigorous way to do a bank payment rather than an ACH. ACH at some banks is viewed like Zelle or PayPal.
Okay. Now, anyway.
Yeah, but anyway, I think you just in my opinion, I would just line up all these different payment methodologies and just sort them out and identify, is that a valid source of payment? And, what are the pluses and minuses, of that transaction using that format and that system, and whether it be PayPal or Venmo or any other, right? I mean, there's so many now. But I would also investigate using, a brokerage account.
Yeah, maybe
because people that are making that kind of investment, they want to do it easily. They don't want to have to go through a bunch of hoops to make that investment. Yes. Because that's when you lose them, right?
And especially because
Rich,
it's not a big
Martin
investment.
keeps saying it's not an investment, according to what Martin just said a few moments ago.
Don't be pedantic here. I mean, I'm using that word just loosely in our conversation. Come on.
Yeah. Or what I want to say, and especially I believe that most of those pre-purchases or voucher purchases are not hundreds of thousands of dollars or so, not even tens of thousands, but maybe a few thousand at most, because it's intended to. It has also to do. Don't forget, Credentialix is also a way to test the market response.
Yeah.
And that's, I believe, is a more important aspect than how to say, than your financing, your way to get financing for your innovation. So I believe for the idea behind Credentialix, it's more important to have 10,000 purchasers with $100 each, or 10,000 purchases, $100 makes $1 million, and with $1 million, you can develop half a product.
I don't disagree. All I'm saying is that the method to make that purchase on Credentialix is really worth understanding. What options do you have, and that you can give someone, you can give them a list of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways to be able to make that purchase. And just like when you walk into a retail location, you can use a Visa, MasterCard, American Express, so on and so forth, right? I mean, you need to have alternatives. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And the more I think about it, the less attractive it is to you to allow cryptocurrency. Because, I mean, I, as a law firm, we also accept cryptocurrency. But what we do is, you send me crypto, I will sell it, and then deduct it from your invoice according to the sales price.
Mm-hmm.
And so
the only reason to use it is because if you've already accrued it from making other sales, and that's how you
Yes.
choose to spend it, so that
Yes.
way you're not taking it as a profit. That's
Yes.
really the
So-
only reason.
Yes, and you need to somehow convert it so that the system out there would understand what you have done. They could also send you 10 pigs, and then you sell the 10 pigs on the pig market, and then you take the whatever. And so then they ask you, why do you take the pigs? And then I say, oh, because they were there, and he wanted to sell or to buy my service because he just could pay in pigs. So that's
Though
why
I will say, I think goats are more universal than pigs. Just joking.
whatever. But if you offer me 10 pigs, I would take them. I mean, I come from a rural environment. I'm not scared of pigs, so yeah, I would take that. So and the same for the crypto. I take it, but I wouldn't open a crypto account for my law firm because that brings too much compliance issues with it.
But Martin, pigs are not kosher or halal, so
But I'm Christian, so I can.
yes, then it's okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Hey, Joe, pork bellies are traded on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange for 100 years. Pork bellies, right?
pork belly, right? And
Yeah.
And for a long time, Wisconsin used cheese as a currency. They paid their workers in cheese.
okay.
That's because you have too many Somalians there in Minnesota.
You're really funny. Okay, people, thank you very much. Today I got very important feedback about Credentilix. Next week I will report about the first project being online because bank transfer is possible, and you can purchase a cargo bay robot also in the US, no problem. I found out.
Good. Look forward to it.
Okay, thanks a lot. See you next
Okay,
week.
Martin.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye,
Yeah.
everybody.
Bye, bye-bye.
Take care.